Hello, I'm Arindam Ghosh. Welcome to my 5th lecture on the Goblin market. I'm actually reading with you the text of the Goblin market. So, laughed every goblin when they spied her peeping, came towards her hobbling, flying, running, leaping, puffing and blowing, chuckling, clapping, crowning, chuckling and gobbling, mopping and mowing, full of airs and graces, pulling wry faces, demure grimaces, cat-like and rat-like, rattle and wombat-like. So the goblins laugh to find Lizzie looking for them. So Lizzie in this particular section is now here so that she can help Laura in recovering from this great disease and disorder, and she is here to help Laura for her sister's sake. So the goblins love to find Lizzie looking for them. They hobble, run and fly toward her, noisy and grimacing. They are very menacing. They hug, they kiss, they squeeze and caress hard. So these are the language of molestation. We can clearly perceive the imageries of the sexual assault has been used by Rossetti. And they are of course animal-like creatures. Cat-like, rat-like, rattle and wombat-like, snail-paced in a hurry. This is the use of the paradox in a single line. How can a person be snail-like at the same time in a hurry? Parrot-voiced and whistler, helter-skelter, hurry-scurry, shattering like magpies, fluttering like pigeons, gliding like fishes. So at the same time they are uttering words and producing sounds, fluttering like pigeons and gliding almost like the fishes. Hugged her and kissed her, squeezed and caressed her, stretched up their dishes, panniers and plates. Look at our apples, russet and dun, bob at our cherries, bite at our peaches, citrons and dates, grapes for dusking, pears red with basking. So instead they are actually requesting Lizzie to do certain activities like bite at our peaches. They are almost forcing Lizzie to eat the forbidden fruits. And plums on their twigs, pluck them and suck them, pomegranate sweets. So you can clearly understand the sexual imageries are running throughout this entire portion of the poem. Good folk said Lizzie. Lizzie was full of patience and said, mindful of Jenny, give me much and many. Held out her apron, tossed them her penny. So this particular portion is very significant because Lizzie now tossed the penny. Penny is the symbol of money. It's actually the symbol of transaction, the language of transaction in which Lizzie is talking. Lizzie is saying that please take the money and give me the fruit by taking that particular portion of money. I will not sell my hair, my golden hair or any parts of my body. I'll give you my silver penny money and then in exchange I'll take the fruits. So the goblins try to tempt her, describing their fruit in deliberately sexual way and urging Lizzie to imagine its taste and feel the fruit in her mouth. But Lizzie refuses their offers, however, and instead attempts to purchase the food, tossing them a silver penny as payment. But they said, nay, take a seat with us, honor and eat with us. They are now forcefully demanding Lizzie to sit with them. And they answered grinning. Grinning means deto hashi. Daant diye toiri ek dhoroner specific way of laughing. They said, our feast is but beginning. Our feast is only beginning, it is only starting. Night yet is early, warm and dew pearly, wakeful and starry, such fruits as these no man can carry. They are again saying that the night is very early, warm, wakeful and starry. Please come and join us. because no man, no person in the world will offer you these fruits. Half their bloom would fly, half their dew dry, half their flavor would pass by. If you carry this fruit to the home, যেটা লিজি চাইছে লরার জন্য এই ফ্রুট নিয়ে যেতে, half their bloom would fly, তাদের অর্ধেক attractiveness of the bloom would fly, half their dew dry, অর্ধেক তাদের ডিউ যেটা টেস্টি করে তুলেছে, শিশি লেগে আছে ফলের গায়ে, that would dry, half their flavor would pass by, half their taste would pass by. Sit down and feast with us, আমাদের সঙ্গে খাও. Be welcome, guest with us. Be welcome, be guest with us. Cheer you and rest with us. I cheer you, and please cheer us. Cheer along with the rest of us. আমাদের সবার সঙ্গে এনজয় করো. Thank you, said Lizzie. But one waits at home alone for me. But someone is waiting. My sister, my own sister, is waiting for me alone in the home. So without further parleying, if you will not sell me any of your fruits, though much and many, give me back my silver penny. আমাকে আমার টাকাটা ফেরত দিয়ে দাও. Give me back my silver penny. I tossed you for a fee. I'm exchanging with you for a certain fee, certain rupees. They began to scratch their plates, no longer wagging, purring, but visibly demurring. Grunting and snarling, one called her proud, cross-grained, uncivil. Their tones waxed loud. সঙ্গে সঙ্গে টোনটা বদলে গেল. One called her proud, কে বললো প্রচন্ডের গর্ব, এই গর্বটা ভেঙে ফেলো. Cross-grained and uncivil. Uncivilized and cross-grained is a kind of racial abuse. She belongs to, she's a production of both the races. Their tones waxed loud, their looks were evil, lashing their tails, they trod and hustled her. They are now beginning to harass her, elbowed and jostled her. They belonged to jostle and elbowed her, clawed with their nails, barking, mewing, hissing, mocking. So these are all animal imageries. They're barking like a dog, mewing, hissing, mocking, tore her ground and soiled her stocking, twitched her hair out by the roots, প্রায় চুলটাকে ধরে ছিঁড়ে ফেললো, out of their roots কয়েকটা, stamped upon her tender feet, পায়ের উপরে মারিয়ে দিল, held her hands and squeezed their fruits. They held their hands, her hands, and squeezed their fruits against her mouth to make her eat, forcefully trying to put the fruits inside her mouth. So the goblins, confused and angry, begin to insult her and accuse her of her pride and incivility. And their anger escalates and they begin to attack Lizzie physically. This is a pure description of the physical assault. At first, they abused Lizzie in sexual language, cross-grained, uncivil. Then they tried to elbow her and jostled her, clawed with their nails. So absolute, this is a description of sexual assault, nothing but sexual assault. So their anger escalates and they begin to attack Lizzie, pulling out her hair by the roots, clawing at her body, stamping on her feet, ripping her gown, and attempting to force their fruit into her mouth to make her eat. So if read symbolically through the lens of the 19th century anxieties about women's sexuality, Lizzie refuses to become fallen. In fact, this resistance to become fallen becomes very important prosody. And their attack, during which they batter Lizzie's body, attempt to cram food into her mouth, strongly evokes sexual assault or attempted rape. So, moving into the next portion of the poem, white and golden Lizzie stood like a lily in a flood. So this is an imagery of the purity of the woman. She is standing like a lily. Lily is a white flower in a flood. When then there is a deluge in the background, the only lily is Lizzie. She is surviving like a isolated flower in a deluge, in a flood. Like a rock of blue veined stone lashed by tides obstreperiously, like a beacon left alone in a hoary roaring sea, like a beacon, like a lighthouse in a hoary roaring sea. So sending up a golden fire like a fruit-crowned orange tree, white with blossoms honey sweet, sore beset by wasp and bee, like a royal virgin town topped with gilded dome and spire, close beleaguered by a fleet, meet to tuck her standard down. So though the goblins try various tactics to make her eat, pinching, scratching, coaxing and mocking her, Lizzie withstands their attack, refusing to open her mouth and eat, and she is being constantly compared with various pure objects in the world, like a royal virgin town topped with gilded dome and spire, close beleaguered by a fleet, mad to tug her standard down. This is compared to a great fleet of the enemies who are coming to attack a great city. একটা বিরাট বড় শহরকে একটা বিরাট বড় নেভাল ফ্লিট অ্যাটাক করতে এসছে তাদের বিরাট বড় আর্মি নিয়ে, কিন্তু সি ইজ নট ইয়েট রেডি টু fall to be a fallen woman. She is constantly fighting with the enemies and not ready to bring down her standards. So one may lead a horse to water, 20 cannot make him drunk. Though the goblins scuffed and caught her, coaxed and fought her, bullied and besought her, scratched her, pinched her black as ink, kicked and knocked her, mauled and mocked her, Lizzie uttered not a word. So the silence is actually her part of resisting her enemies. Though these goblins is constantly physically assaulting her, though they try various tactics to make her eat, pinching, scratching, etc., but she is not uttering a single word. This is perhaps an example of the Victorian morality. Perhaps the poet is upholding this form of morality as an ideal one, though perhaps the modern writers would criticize it by saying that this is not a way of resistance but a way of submission. But she, to Rossetti, Lizzie becomes a personification of resistance, silent resistance. So they bullied and besought her, scratched her, pinched her back as ink, kicked and knocked her, mauled and mocked her. Lizzie uttered not a word, would not open leaf from me. She will never open her lip, lest they should cramp a mouthful in, but laughed in heart to feel the drip of juice that syrupped all her face, and lodged in dimples of her chin, and streaked her neck, which quaked like curd. At last, the evil people, worn out by her resistance, flung back her penny, kicked their fruits, along whichever road they took, not leaving root or stone or shoot. So unable to fight Lizzie's resistance, these goblin men at last leave the battleground. যুদ্ধের ময়দান ছেড়ে ছেড়ে পারলো না। লিজির জামা কাপড় কস্টিউমকে ভিজিয়ে দিল with the fruit juice and syrup, which actually symbolizes the signs and icons of sexual assault. But they at last pay back their rupees, they pay back the payment, and at last left the ground, left the glen. So along whichever road they took, not leaving root or stone or shoot. Some withered into the ground, some writhed into the ground, মাটিতে চলে গেল, কারণ অ্যানিমাল অনেকেই. Some dived into the brook, কেউ জলে ঝাঁপিয়ে পড়লো. With ring and ripple হলো, হঠাৎ করে মিলিয়ে গেল. Some scudded on the gale without a sound, হঠাৎ করে গেলের মধ্যে, গেলিক ভ্যালির মধ্যে, without a sound লুকিয়ে পড়লো. Some vanished in the distance. So they leave Lizzie victorious. They disappear and Lizzie becomes victorious. Lizzie is described at length using imagery that symbolizes strength, purity, and moral uprightness. There is numerous allusions to Lizzie's white skin, golden hair, and innate purity, and which also seems to align her with Christian cities under siege by the invading forces. So here is an example of that she is almost like a Christian city under the siege of almost a crusader, fighting against all forms of pagan and heathen enemies. So naturally, Victorian text Christian symbol is pervading throughout the entire text, and Lizzie is being constantly compared with Christ or Christ-like figure, and Laura is being constantly compared with Eve. Remember, Eve is also a patriarchal construction. She is a creature of the patriarchy, created from the seventh rib of the Adam. So remember that that Laura and Lizzie are being constantly compared with the biblical figures. And at last, when these goblin men fail to forcefully assault Lizzie, they left battleground. Moving into the next section of the poetry, in a smart ache, tingle Lizzie went her way, knew not was it night or day, sprang up the bank, tore through the furs, threaded copse and jingle, and heard her penny jingle bouncing in her purse. So this penny is perhaps symbolizing her virginity, that it is still there. Because in the Victorian time, virginity is very important in the patriarchal society. So with an aching body and in a very drained out mental daze, Lizzie runs home, and she is no longer afraid of the goblins, but pleased to escape with her coin. She ran and ran as if she feared some goblin man dogged her with jibe or curse or something worse. But not one goblin's scurried after, nor was she pricked by fear. So she was completely fearless. The kind heart made her windy paced, that urged her home quite out of breath with haste and inward laughter. Inside her she can feel the victory, inward laughter. She cried, Laura, up the garden. Here we will find a description of the female solidarity or female sisterhood, that one woman had to stand beside another woman, in spite of though she is being sexually assaulted and molested. আর একটা নারীকে আর একটা নারীর পাশে থাকতে হবে। কেন একটা পুরুষকে থাকতে হবে না সেটা আমি সত্যি জানি না, টেক্সটে সেই উত্তর দেওয়া হয়নি। কেন ভিক্টোরিয়ান পেট্রিয়ার্কি একটা নারীর পাশে আর একটা পুরুষকে অ্যালাউ করবে না? ওয়াই? উই রিয়েলি ডোন্ট নো, বাট কিন্তু এই টেক্সটের ক্ষেত্রে অ্যাটলিস্ট অ্যালাউ করছে না। হয়তো ক্রিস্টিনা জর্জিনা রসেটির কনভেনশনাল উইজডম, কনভেনশনাল পেট্রিয়ার্কাল পলিটিক্সের কাছে তিনি সারেন্ডার করছেন এবং বলছেন যে হয়তো এটা অ্যালাউ করা সম্ভব নয়। She cried, Laura, up the garden, did you miss me? Come and kiss me, come and kiss me. Never mind my bruises, hug me, kiss me, suck my juices. Squeezed from goblin fruits for you, goblin pulp and goblin dew. Eat me, drink me, love me. Remember that in Victorian physiognomy, one negativity can only be washed away by another negativity. একটা নেগেটিভ কারেন্ট দিয়ে আর একটা নেগেটিভ কারেন্টকে একমাত্র এনকাউন্টার করা যায় এই ভিক্টোরিয়ান পৃথিবীতে। ফলে আমাদের যেটা প্রথমেই মাথায় রাখতে হবে সেটা হচ্ছে এই পার্টিকুলার কনটেক্সটে লরা অ্যান্ড লিজি, যখন লরা ইজ বিং অ্যাটাকড বাই দ্য গবলিন মেন অ্যান্ড শি ইজ পাইন ফর দ্য ফ্রুট, লিজি সেই ফলের রসটাকে নিজের জামাতে ধরে আনলো যাতে সেটা লরাকে দিতে পারে, এবং লরা যাতে সেই পার্টিকুলার ফ্রুট জুস টেস্ট করে সেই নেগেটিভিটিকে এনকাউন্টার করে আবার পজিটিভিটির দিকে যেতে পারে। অ্যান্ড হেন্স লিজি ইজ রিকোয়েস্টিং লরা টু হাগ হার, কিস হার অ্যান্ড সাক হার জুসেস, squeeze from the goblin fruits for you. Goblin pulp and goblin dew, eat me, drink me, love me. Important lines, 2 marks or 5 marks question আসতে পারে। Laura, make much of me. For your sake, I have braved the glen and had to do with goblin merchant men. I have braved those men and had to do with the goblin merchant men. I have resisted the goblin merchant men. So it clearly suggests that Lizzie's sacrifice will undo or reverse the damage caused to her sister by eating the fruit. That will essentially reverse the damage, bringing them back to the idyllic pre-lapsarian peaceful lives they previously enjoyed. Post-lapsarian means after the fall. Potoner pore, after we, the human being, have fallen from the Garden of Eden by eating the forbidden fruit. You have read Paradise Lost already. So you have read Paradise Lost already, that this is that there is a distinction between the pre-lapsarian and the post-lapsarian world. Pre-lapsarian means the world in which mankind have not yet fallen, and post-lapsarian means the world where the mankind has already been fallen. So Lizzie's sacrifice will perhaps try to undo or reverse the damage caused to her sister by eating the fruit, bringing back to the idyllic, peaceful lives they previously enjoyed. So that will transform Laura and Lizzie into a pre-lapsarian world. So in the light of the poem's many biblical resonances, it is also possible to read this moment of mirroring as alluding to the traditional Christian belief that Mary was the second Eve, who reversed the curses brought on humanity by the first Eve's disobedience to God. So the first Eve is Eve herself, who instructed and sometimes incited Adam to eat the fruit of the forbidden tree by completely disobeying God. But Mary, the Christ's mother, is perhaps, according to the Christian belief, is the second Mary, whom the God created in order to reverse the curse brought on the humanity. So the Savior of the mankind, Jesus Christ, born in Virgin Mary's womb. So Lizzie, aligned with Mary, saves her fallen sister Laura, who is aligned with Eve, and Lizzie is being compared with Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ. So a constant allusion of Lizzie with Mary and Laura with Eve is happening inside this text. So let us now move into the next slide of the poem. Laura started from her chair, flung her arms up in the air, clutched her hair. Lizzie, Lizzie, have you tasted for my sake the fruit forbidden? Have you sacrificed yourself for my sake? Laura is questioning. Must your light like mine be hidden? Your young life like mine wasted? You have wasted your life like mine. Have you yourself become a fallen woman? She is asking. Starting from a chair, she is startling, leaps from a chair and at once pulls the hair of the Lizzie. She is asking these questions. Undone in mine undoing and ruined in my ruin, trusty cankered goblin ridden. So have you become goblin ridden? তুমি কি গবলিনদের দ্বারা আক্রান্ত হয়েছো? And ruined in my ruin, তুমি কি আমার ধ্বংসের জন্য নিজেও ধ্বংস হয়েছো? So she fearfully asks Lizzie if she has eaten the goblin's fruit and wonders whether her sister will begin to wither away and age like hers. She fears that Lizzie's life will be ruined and wasted like her own. So on hearing that Lizzie braved the meeting with the goblin men, Laura is distraught, she is disturbed and begins tearing her hair in grief. She fears that Lizzie will become dejected, listless and withered just like herself. So she is expressing her deep anxiety right now. And she clung about her sister, kissed and kissed and kissed her. Tears once again refreshed her shrunken eyes, dropping like rain after long sultry drought. Shaking with anguish, fear and pain, she kissed and kissed her with a hungry mouth. So when Laura is constantly begins to kiss Lizzie, with that kiss tears return to refresh Laura's once dry and shrunken eyes, and shaking with pain Laura continues to kiss Lizzie with a hungry mouth. Laura's lips begin to scorch as she sucks the juices from her sister's face, but this is actually a process of self-cleansing, নিজেকে পরিষ্কার করার এবং at the same time লিজিকে বাঁচাবার এটাই হচ্ছে একমাত্র পথ. Her lips began to scorch. The juice was wormwood to her tongue. She loathed the feast. Right now, she is not at all enjoying like the previous moments. She is just hating the entire thing. And riding as one possessed, she leaped and sung, rent all her robe and wrung her hands in lamentable haste, and beat her breast. Her locks streamed like the torch borne by a racer at full speed. So her locks, her hair, that actually streamed like the torch, যেন টর্চের মতো জ্বলে উঠেছে, আগুনের মতো. Or like the mane of horses in their flight, or like an eagle when the steams the light. So these are here we can find some similes and metaphors, but she is being compared with the horses in their flight, or like an eagle when she steams the light. Straight toward the sun, or like a caged thing freed, or like a flying flang when armies ran. So like someone possessed, Laura rides, leaps, sings and tears at her clothing. So Laura's locks screamed like the torch and borne by the racer at full speed. যেন কোনো একটা ঘোড়া তার উপর দিয়ে ছুটছে, এমনভাবে লরা লিজিকে আদর করছে। Swift fire sprayed through her veins, knocked at her heart, made the fire smoldering there, and overbore its lesser flame. She gorged on bitterness without a name. Ah, fool to choose such part of soul-consuming care, sense felled in the mortal strife, like the watchtower of a town, which an earthquake shatters down, like a lightning strikes mast, like a wind uprooted tree spun about, like a foam-topped water spout cast down the headlong in the sea, she fell at last. প্রচন্ড পরিমাণে লরাকে একটা অদ্ভুত ফিয়ার্সনেস দিয়ে জেন্টলি খানিকটা অ্যাফেকশনেটলি খানিকটা ফিয়ার্স দিয়ে আদর করার পরে she at last fell down, shatters down like an earthquake shatters down. It is not immediately clear if Laura is dead or alive. Like a foam-topped water spout casts down headlong in the sea. এরকমভাবে বিশাল ফেনা হয়ে একটা বিরাট বড় ঢেউ আছড়ে পড়ে জলের মধ্যে, she fell at last. So here I will comment critically about this particular passage. The sucking the fruit juices from her sister's battered body, which she kissed and kissed with a hungry mouth, Laura begins to revive this miraculous moment of healing. This is actually perhaps a kind of healing brought about by Lizzie. Lizzie's Christ-like act of self-sacrifice is also sexually charged and homoerotic. This is perhaps a homoerotic or lesboerotic act of fantasy, indicating that the poem lends itself to more complex readings than just religious allegory or fairy tale. শুধুমাত্র didactic poem as a proto-feminist poem or as a religious allegory and fairy tale, এগুলোর বাইরেও একটা it can be read as a lesboerotic tale of fantasy, Goblin Market. So when sucked from a sister's body, the delicious but poisonous fruit is transformed into a bitter but restorative medicine. So Lizzie now appears as almost like a Laura is appearing almost like a restorative medicine to Lizzie, and the same is also true of the Lizzie to Laura. After Laura drinks it, she seemingly loses control of her body, leaping and riding like one possessed. In contrast to the erect, upright imagery associated with Lizzie's ability to withstand the goblin attack, Laura is compared to towers that crumble during an earthquake and a ship's mast struck by lightning. And like Christ, who withstood crucifixion and death before rising from the dead to eternal life, Laura seems temporarily to succumb to the ordeal and drops down as if dead. Laura appears that she is almost now dead. Now we are appearing almost to the end section of the poem. The last few lines are remaining there. Pleasure past and anguish past, is it death or is it life? So the poet is not sure whether Laura is dead or Laura is alive. Life out of death. Perhaps Laura borns again from death. That night long Lizzie watched by her, counted her pulses, flagging hair, felt for her breath, held water to her lips and cooled her face. Throughout the night, Lizzie tries to cool Laura's face with tears and fanning leaves. এই যে মানে চোখের জল দিয়ে ঠান্ডা করার ব্যাপারটা, চোখের জল দিয়ে প্রেম নিবেদনের ব্যাপারটা, চোখের জল অ্যাজ ইফ একটা পিওর সিম্বল, এই পেট্রিয়ার্কাল পলিটিক্সটা কিন্তু থেকে ক্রিস্টিনা জর্জিনা রসেটিও মুক্তি পেতে পারেননি আর কি। সো counted her pulses, flagging stir, felt for her breath, held water to her lips and cooled her face with tears and fanning leaves. But when the first birds chirped about their eaves and early reapers But when the first birds chirped about the reaps, and early reapers plodded to the place, when the early reapers, those who are agricultural people, those who reaps the land, they plodded the place of golden sheeps and dew-wet grass, bowed in the morning wind, so brisk to pass. We can clearly detect here the imagery of a new morning. A new day begins. Perhaps this day can be equated with the new day in the life of both Laura and Lizzie. Laura এবং লিজি জীবনও যেন একটা নতুন জন্ম, একটা নতুন দিনের সূচনা ঘটল। Bowed in the morning, wind so brisk to pass, and new birds with new day opened up cup like lilies on the stream. Laura awoke as from a dream, as if Laura is waking from a dream, and the nightmares of the goblin men are slowly withering away, and she is awakened into a new life. Laura awoke as from a dream, laughed in the innocent old way. She laughs in the innocent old way, laughed in the innocent old way, hugged Lizzie, but not twice or thrice. Her gleaming locks showed not one thread of grey. Now this is showing that she has been rejuvenated completely. Her breath was sweet as May, and light danced in her eyes. At last, Lizzie has saved Laura. Laura সমস্ত ফিজিক্যাল ডিজেনারেশনের সাইন চলে গেছে. লরা ইজ নাও অ্যাপিয়ারিং লাইক অলমোস্ট এম্বার্কিং আ জার্নি অফ হার নিউ লাইফ, নতুন একটা জীবন শুরু করছে. অ্যান্ড দেয়ার ইজ নো সাইন অফ এজিং ইন দ্য ফিজিক্যাল বিউটি অফ লরা. So throughout the night, Lizzie keeps watch over Laura. She takes on the role of a nurse, counting Laura's pulse and shaking her breathing, giving her water and cooling her face with tears. When morning arrives, heralded by the sounds of birds and agricultural workers and opening of flowers, Laura awakens, transformed. She loves in her old innocent way and embraces Lizzie. Her hair returns to its golden color, showing not one thread of grey, and her youthfulness is restored. Laura's life, which seemed to be at risk, has dawned again. She has started a new journey. Her hair has been restored to its golden color, signifying the return of the health, joy, and the peace of mind. So now we have appeared in the last few sections of the poem. Days, weeks, months, years afterwards, when both were wives with children of their own. So years pass, months pass, during which Laura and Lizzie have both become wives and mothers. So motherhood and surrendering to the institution of marriage becomes two very important Victorian concepts without which a woman cannot be completed. So their mother hearts beset with fears, their lives bound up in tender lives. Laura would call the little ones and tell them of her early prime. So those pleasant days long gone of not returning home, of not returning time, would talk about the haunted glen, the wicked, quaint fruit merchant men, their fruits like honey to the throat, but poison in the blood. Men sell not such in any town, would sell them. How her sister stood in deadly peril to do her good. So that she also tells her daughters, the stories of her girlhood to her daughters about the dangers encountered with the wicked, quaint fruit merchant men. তাদের গল্প বলে, শেখায় যে কি ভয়ঙ্কর জিনিস ঘটেছিল তাদের সঙ্গে, সেখানে পরবর্তীকালের জেনারেশনে রিপিটেড না হয়. So she tells the children about how Lizzie saved her by risking her life and braving an attack from the goblin men, so that her daughters also could form a form of sisterhood, a great sisterhood, and win the fiery antidote. Then joining hands to little hands to bid them cling together, for there is no friend like a sister. In calm or stormy weather, to cheer one on the tedious way, to fetch one if one goes astray. If one goes astray, যদি একজন ডেস্ট্রয়েড হয়ে যায় কোনোভাবে, আর একজন সিস্টার কেন তাকে রক্ষা করে. এই যে সিস্টারহুড, ভিক্টোরিয়ান সিস্টারহুডের কথা বলে শেষ করছেন কবিতা. টু লিফট ওয়ান ইফ ওয়ান টটার্স ডাউন, ইফ ওয়ান টটার্স ডাউন, একজন যদি পড়ে যায় আরেকজনকে লিফট করো. টু স্ট্রেনথেন whilst one stands, একজন যদি দাঁড়িয়ে থাকে আরেকজনকে স্ট্রেনথেন করো. So the poem is ending here at this stage. It's a 5, 6 to 7 line narrative poetry. So remember, it's a long poem. The book 1 of Paradise Lost is 798 lines. So it's almost like the book 1 of the Paradise Lost. It's a huge poem. So it ends with a cry for sisterhood, a cry for feminine union, and so that all the women remain in a collective spirit. All the women can resist the patriarchal machineries of power. So that both Laura and Lizzie becomes wives and mothers is very significant at the end of the poem. Because in many 19th century narratives and works of art, fallen women generally die, or they are transported out of the England into the colonies, or otherwise denied opportunities for marriage and motherhood, which together were commonly viewed as the ideal state for the women at that time. So generally in the 19th century narratives, fallen women are generally transported in different land or they die. But with Laura and Lizzie, Rossetti seems to counter the pervasive message that fallen women were largely irredeemable. But here, Laura's instruction to her own and Lizzie's daughters to support one another, and cling together, for there is no friend like a sister, actually creates a vision of female solidarity. It actually creates a vision of the universal sisterhood and care to counter the dangers of the predatory goblin men. So through this form of feminine sisterhood, so through this form of daughterhood, through this form of the vision of the female solidarity, she is actually encountering the predatory goblin men. So I'll end this particular chapter by this particular section by showing the structure of the entire poem. The poem begins with the temptation, remember. Then there occurs the fall of the Laura. Then the consequence of the fall, she is pining like Jenny. And then the rescue by whom? Rescue by Lizzie. And the poem ends with the redemption. Redemption means now they have instituted themselves inside the formal institutions of marriage and motherhood, and hence redemption. So A structure, temptation, fall, consequences, rescue, redemption, এই স্ট্রাকচারের মধ্যে দিয়ে গবলিন মার্কেট অপারেট করেছে। In the next lecture, we'll discuss about some basic concepts, that what is patriarchy, what's the difference between sex and gender, what are the major issues that Christina Rossetti tries to portray in the Goblin market. We'll discuss about them in the next lecture. So thank you. We'll see you in the 6th lecture. Thank you.